Welcome to the Get On Our Level podcast. We're going to be talking about the formula to great, which is expect more plus bring more equals be great. Today we're going to be talking about the expect more, the first part of the formula, which is really accountability on the part of the programmer. Expect more has a lot of dimensions to it. Expect more is not about certifications. Expect more is not about level of education. Expect more is about the actions and the quality they deliver. I have my master's in sports sciences. I've got a bachelor's in physical education. I'm a teacher, a lot of experience managing groups as a coach, a strength coach, doing the Vargo train thing and managing K through 8, K through 12 classrooms for now 10 years. I also have my certifications through ISSA. I've had former certifications in other organizations, and at the end of the day, those certifications, the clinic time, the master's degree, there are points that are important and help develop me as a program writer or as somebody who implements something. But where we have grown to today is an accumulation of numbers, reflection, changes, all based off of things that we've tracked over the years. So not saying expect more like you got to have certain credentials. Credentials mean jack. Credentials just get you a little bit of a base knowledge. But our industry is so young compared to other industries. I mean, we're well inside 40 years of actually knowing kind of a little bit what we're doing with trying to increase or enhance performance. And the research is primarily done on people 18 and over. So your textbook knowledge, your certifications, your everything else under the sun that you hang on the wall, maybe a little bit of poster mentality there. I have arrived because I've got these certificates and these degrees. That means nothing. Congratulations. You learned a little bit. Now it's time to apply it. And the fact that the majority of people around here work with athletes under 18 or even under 21 means that the majority of the things that were learned in the classroom and in all the research studies that were used to support your papers and everything else did not apply to the population, which may be why we have seen such a high rate of success. We collect and have been for over 10 years now, for about 12, 13 years. We go all the way back. We can open workouts from 2004 with Chris Tran, Jordan Francis, the Wills sisters, and look at what we were doing at that time. And then we can open up what we did last week. And we could lay everything out on that whole timeline. You can see how there's growth, there's changes, because we take our population, we implement what science says, we look at and we evaluate how things were responded to based off of the sport, career level, time of year, the commitment level, which now we have taken care of that because people are going to implement the program, and we adjust the program. That needs to be done, and I believe it's not being done on a grand scale. We're applying what was put in, written in textbooks, and a lot of that science, that knowledge has not been updated. We're inside of 40 years as a area of science, a study, and we should have rapid developments in how we're doing things. We've seen a lot of changes. You go back to the 70s, the 80s, Nebraska program, bigger, faster, stronger. There's a lot of people still hang on to those things. A lot of people are still about big, slow movements. A lot of people are hung up on Olympic lifts. And we're not going to get into a ton of details on the ins and outs. We'll let you know about a lot of stuff, but the things that should be done based off the sports and what and when and why and how, it's all going to be found out if you start right now and you're data tracking and looking at your program and let it evolve. If you're not on a path of evolving, you are what this expect more piece is about. You should expect more out of your program. There should be growth going on. It's not just about degrees and certificates. And I'm glad that I can sit here in a position with a master's degree, with all the certificates you could want, and say they don't mean much. Exercise science, master's in sports science, all that stuff, it would make me a lot better than when I started. But the growth that has happened as a program, the big leaps, have not come from those degrees, those certificates. As a matter of fact, in some of my college classes, there's some things that I did learn in my certification programs because they were a little more ahead of the curve than the colleges and the universities. And there's a lot of these universities, colleges, they're still using BMI charts. I'm going to tell you, if you're doctor, I don't care who it is, they pull a BMI chart out, you need to go get another medical professional, sports training professional, anything else. They're measuring your waist to your height ratio or your weight ratio and saying you need to lose body fat. Get up out of there. I mean, we're talking 30, 40 years of outdated science. And that's why we do the Bod Pod. That's why I've been sending people to Don for about 11 years now, because of the accuracy of that. And things have evolved since then in measuring body composition, but the exposure to radiation and the fact that the body fat test would cost over $1,000 is why we've still stuck to the Bod Pod testing, the hydrodensity weighing, if anybody still offers that. So the expect more piece goes into what is being delivered. Expect more. If you're a swimmer and somebody ever tells you to step foot in a ladder, you need to get up out of there. That's not somebody that has your best interest. If you're, and just because a program or a company or a coach or whatever, whoever's running your development for you as an athlete, just because it's a sports, it's got the word sports or athlete or enhancement or performance, or just because it's related to your sport, doesn't necessarily mean that your program is going to develop you to get better on game day, to improve yourself as an athlete on game day. There's a lot of exercising going around in sports programs. There's a lot of exercising going around in development and training and performance and enhancement programs. And there is a tremendous difference between exercise and training to develop an athlete. If you're side by side as a 16, 17, 18-year-old athlete, and you're doing the same thing as a 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old mom, grandma, grandpa, anything else, you're exercising. And that's great. Exercise is good for you. But it's not specific to developing you for your sport. If you're coming in and you're doing the same thing as a cross country, as a distance runner, as a tennis player, you're probably doing some sort of an exercise program, or you're on a program that's specific to one of you, not both. Perfect example of why we don't take endurance athletes. We're dynamic sport athletes. That's our specialty. There's a lot of crossover, a lot of similarities that those sports and those athletes can do, and then that 10, 15% that is differentiated, we can take care of. But having a room full of endurance distance kids with, I don't know, explosive like halfbacks, wide receivers, point guards, those are two totally different human beings. And to even think that you could put them on anything remotely close is a statement to your ignorance. Also with expect more. What's your program look like? We've got a shell, we've got phases, we've got cycles, we've got weeks, we've got days, we've got sets, we've got reps, and then down to the reps, we got a how. For duration, for holds, for tempo, for speed, for explosiveness, how. All the way back to the shell, which is the entire year. And a lot of sports, there's a little bit of crossover, but there's some differentiation, and there's other sports. Take, for example, our powerlifter, Taylor Shaw, her entire shell and her phases and her cycles, she'll do the same lifts as other people do, but the approach to the entire program is nothing like anybody else's. So when you come in, aside from your whole shell, phase, cycle, weeks, all that sets, does it even change? Or are you coming in every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it's the same thing? Now, on the flip side, it should not be totally different. What's the plan? Are we coming in to exercise, to move some weight around, to get our heart rate up? Or are we coming in specifically to develop the athlete to improve at their specific sport? And that takes a little bit of time. And time is not fun. I don't want to spend time on this. Why can't they just come and exercise? That's expect more. Expect more. I mean, the amount of time and effort that you put into your sport and the extra shooting, the passion, the goals, the desire you have to be just good, to be relevant, shouldn't the people whose job description is to make you better put a little bit of effort in to give you that product? And when we look at it, you guys have been going to school for 4, 8, 10, 12 years, and you studied the body, its systems, how they operate and how they react to outside stimuli, to when we put it under this condition, when we put it under this condition, this much rest, this much. The ins and outs, or at least you took some tests on it to get your degree. Use the degree. You might pick up a couple things at a clinic or a seminar or listening to a coach or reading a book, but it should improve your program. It's not your program. The problem is, I don't know what, you're getting spending all this time in college and becoming an expert on this stuff, and when we get out in the real world, we're not applying it. We think like there's something magical to it. It's not. Take the sound science, how the body operates, how it works, and work it. A big piece of the expect more is, they're not working that, but also expect more of the structure of your training environment. People are allowed to just come and go and do whatever they please, and you're one of those ultra committed, like super serious, I want to get better, I want to do big things athlete. That ain't for you. And I've been a varsity coach, 12 years. I understand there's different levels of commitment. And everybody does need to improve. And yeah, you should be there for your team and help them. But you know what? You need to go get the extra. Extra is the enemy of average. And get with like-minded people. You coming into our environment where 8 out of 10 kids are going on to play in college over the last 6, going on 7 years. 1 in every 2 will be all-state. Some of the best in the state. 1 in every 2. 9 out of 10 will be the best in their conference. Doing this 6, 7 years in a row. The national average of people going on to play their sport in college is anywhere from 5 to 7%. We're doing between 80 and 84%. Iron sharpens iron. So you need to go, you need to be with your team, you need to help bring your program up, pour into your school. But you know what, if the whole shell, the whole structure doesn't meet the expectations, after you go there and try to help bring it up, you need to go finish yourself off. Whether that's goalie training, or with a skills trainer for your shooting, or taking shots on your own, or passing with your quarterback, or taking snaps with your center, or going to a place like us that takes what is missing in your athletic development program and finishes it off. Expect more doesn't mean, you're not up to my standards, I'm out. Because at the end of the day, you got to go back, you got to play with those folks, and we need to elevate them. But when you go back to these people that spent half a decade to an entire decade and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on education at the college level, and we get out and we just, oh yeah, the such and such program that they do at Penn State or Ohio State, we'll do that. Or maybe they do use their education one time, they throw together a typical cookie cutter, scaled, moving up in the rep cycle, rep range, moving down in the rep range, rep cycle, and then here's our stretching routine, here's our nutrition, here's our this, that, and the other. Our conditioning, our warm-up, bind it together, and then make 500 copies handed out for the next 5 years. Our industry is less than 40 years old. And when it gets to really getting serious and not just we're lifting weights, not just we're running sprints, but the advances that we've had in science and improving athletes, that binder's outdated. It's way outdated. But like we said before, not only is that binder outdated, your process is outdated. You're not getting to understand your population. Because your population, there's not research on your population. Trust and believe. There is a difference between training a 21, 22-year-old college football player that the research and the data and the studies are out there on, and a 14-year-old female soccer player that's never been in a weight room or a training environment. There is a difference. Expect more out of those developing and implementing your program. Here's expect more example that we've seen at the college level. This is not just a high school thing. This is not just a local companies we're doing exercise, but we're gonna call it sports performance thing. This goes up pretty far, and maybe it's because strength coaches aren't paid well, or maybe it's because honestly the exercise science, the training degrees, certification programs are just outdated. But at the college level, we've seen with one of our college football players, he brought us his program, and you could tell it was actually put together pretty well for a college football athlete. You could tell somebody sat down and said, what are the demands? What do we want on game day? And then they started all the way from game day, and they worked all the way back to first day out of the off season. And they put together a plan to take that strength and power and develop it, and then eventually get it to be applied. Application of strength, and you could see how everything would work and eventually get there to game day. It's not how we would do it, but how we would do it is not the only way. We've seen different versions, things that we don't like or care for, that we don't use, not because we're right or wrong, but because we just don't care for it. It doesn't fit kind of how we flow with things and how our structure is set up. But you could tell in this Division III football program that somebody spent some time putting it together, and it was quality. We have a volleyball girl that comes from that same university. She's one of the best workers that we've ever had. I mean, we've been very lucky to be with her for now 4 or 5 years. And she's one of those kids that kind of enjoys training by itself, but also wants to get better in her sport. So she's worked her way up to, I'm gonna play the college level. I remember the first time you get your first college training packet, you're all excited, you're motivated to implement it and just tear through it and impress your coach. But like all of our kids, they bring their packets. We look at it, we see what we could add, what we could do different, how quality it is. We get text messages, and we supplement or we add to whatever they're having them do while they're off at college. And we've had great programs, and we've had programs like this one that when we looked at it, I said, hold on a second, let me go upstairs real quick. Went up, grabbed the college football binder, put hers underneath it. She's a volleyball player. Page, turned it to the agilities, identical. Flip the page, the nutrition's on the next page. The nutrition advice, identical. Flip it, the conditioning, identical. Flip it, the rep range, the sets, all the scales, all the week to week, all the exercises, identical. Somebody took this football program that somebody spent some time on and looked quality for a college football team, and they just dumped it off on the volleyball girls. Expect more. What, your sport doesn't sell out? Your sport doesn't fund the athletic department? Your sport's not sexy like football, where we're going to train, and on Friday night, the whole community, the band, everybody's going to come, make a big deal of it, and I'm going to be standing on the sidelines with the team because I'm the strength coach, and this is going to be, sweet, and I'm not going to get that same thing out of you swimmers, so I'm not going to give you a program. We volleyball players, let's push you. Here you go. Here's the football thing. They'll never know. Expect more. Yeah, I got swimmers. I got volleyball players. I got girls basketball players. I got boys baseball. That you take your best football player, your dog that's in the weight room 5 days a week and lives in there, lives for football, and we got a swimmer that's at that same level. I'm not saying they're bigger, better than that. They're the same level. They just chose a different sport, but they are the swim version of that middle linebacker that just eats, breathes, lives, sleeps, everything football. They're that way about swim. And we just dump them on these crap programs. So we get those kids that are motivated, that live it, that want to improve. They bring more, and we give them what they should expect in their training program. Boom, formula's complete, great. We get that hungry girls basketball player who wants it as much as your quarterback trying to lead everybody, get in the weight room all off season. They want it, they want it, they want it. They come here and they get what they should expect, but they don't get elsewhere. And they already are bringing more. Boom, great. The formula, expect more out of what's being delivered to you. Bring more. And we'll touch on that on the Bring More podcast. And that will be, that is the formula. That's how we get to great. So everybody, as a reminder, expect more from your environment, from those in charge of developing you. Does not mean to ditch your team. Get in there. Take the leadership, the mental toughness, the form, the technique, the how, and teach it to your teammates. Let me tell you, there's nothing better than being a part of the greatest team in school history, or the first team in 10, 15 years to go as deep as you did, and to have and be a part of a group of people and to lead the way. That is far better than receiving an all-state first team all-state award, or them breaking the all-time scoring record. That's short-lived. Yeah, you always have it on your resume, but it's not an experience like bringing your team up. So if you're not getting the expect more, go find it. But at the same time, do what you can to pour in and elevate your team. Expect more. Average is an epidemic. Don't let the inconvenience of time and details and effort and monotony that it takes to develop your program, to put together your program, don't let the designers inconvenienced by that affect your pursuit to great. Because there's two pieces to that formula. If you're bringing more, you better expect more. If you expect more and you're not getting more, you better find it, because you're going to need that part of the formula to get to great. Get on our level.
You can never